Hi everyone, delonewolf here, and welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. And well, it's a great time to be playing EVE Online with the big war that's happening at the moment. From the Money Badger coalition attacking the Imperium. That should be pretty interesting to see the market impact. We also had the 07 show, and then of course later this month we'll have the expansion and FanFest. So it's really a good time to be playing some EVE Online, to be checking everything out. Of course we are here for the market. Let's see if we can spot any impact from this major war on the market here. As always, we'll start with plex, 45 seconds, and let's take a look on this one. All right, still heading back down. So last week we did have a bit of a move back up, but now we're back down and we're actually pulling lower than the previous bottom here. So let's take a quick look here. Sellers are at 1,038,39 billion, something like that. It's actually moving pretty quickly, and then the buyers are at just above a billion, 1,026. The margin here of 12 million, pretty much average and normal. And actually, if we look at this 104, let's say 104, yeah, that's already right here on the chart. So plex are still going back down. It looks like we didn't find the bottom 2 weeks ago. Looks like we have to go a little bit lower, which is of course very good news for people that want to plex their accounts. Volumes still remain quite high since the skill injector introduction here. As you can see here, volumes are still definitely a little bit higher than what they were before. It is also possible that of course the war has an actual impact here. People may want and need some liquid ISK in order to get into ships to buy some contracts from their alliance if they don't have a 100% ship replacement program and things like that. But yeah, this is again going counter to my own expectations. I thought that plex would be going higher and higher the closer we got to the expansion, but that's just not the case. Honestly, it's starting to look to me like an okay time to invest, to consider investing here, although it is very hard to say what the exact bottom is going to be for plex. Plex close to a billion should turn out to be a good investment if you can have the patience for inflation to work its thing. So it could be months, even a few years until you get something like an opportunity to sell at 1.2, 1.3, maybe even higher than that, because well, inflation does remain a reality, I think. But at the moment, yeah, a lot of people are selling. One thing that could of course be happening is that there's a lot of selling of plex because people want to be ready for the citadels now that they're deployed on CC. We have an almost certain idea of what exactly is going to be needed, what people will need in liquid ISK in order to be able to buy the blueprints, buy all the copies they need, and just be ready for the Citadel expansion when that comes out. So I think that could be some sale pressure right there due to the expansion, although historically, especially now with the war, we have more and more people coming back. If those people want to plex their account, if let's say the war lasts for more than a month, then we could see an upswing on these. So very interesting. We'll have to keep a very close eye on the plex market. Here is the training certificates also going down. Again, after trying to recover from 1,550 million, so right here. But yeah, again, we are going down. This chart looks less dramatic than the plex chart though. You can clearly see that the 20-day moving average here is going down very drastically at a very steady pace, and that the 5-day moving average is staying just below that at a decent margin as well. So I do think that this has even more momentum than it already has, and we could really see plex dive below a billion if this momentum can be kept up. Of course, you never know, these plex have to come from somewhere, and it looks to me like there's a lot of stock dumping that's going on at the moment. So these could not, it is possible, I think, that a lot of these don't come from actual sales from CCP, although here at this downtrend here it was a plex sale. But if people are actually dumping their stocks to put efforts and to put means, ISK, ships, whatever, into the war, you know, I want ISK is said to be paying a lot of the parties, then that could of course explain this partially as well. All right, let's take a look at the body resculpt. That one is actually at a decently high point at the moment. It is at the tail end here, going back down towards 260 million. Let's see if the availability, well, you know, pretty much half of these are being brought in the last 24 hours. So my guess is that converting a plex into a body resculpt is actually something that makes you a little bit of money even at this price of 275 million ISK, and that's why some people have probably done this, just trying to make a little bit of money on the decrease of plex by investing that into something it can be converted in that was lagging behind and doing a different thing. So at some point, of course, there will always be a correlation between the pilot body resculpt and the plex market, but because it's such a small and niche market, it has the power to actually do its own thing, and basically it has some potential to get out of balance with plex. And what I think we're seeing here at the tail end, the decrease here in the price of the body resculpt, is a little bit of an opportunity that people spotted to make money by converting plex into these body resculpts. Of course, you have to jump through the Aurum market to do that, but I think it's perfectly possible. Next up, the skill extractors. These continue to decline in price, heading towards 245 million ISK. That's pretty interesting. So 241 for the sellers, 239 for the buyers. The gap is closing, but the availability just remains absolutely huge. Look at that. That's almost 2 pages of new sell orders, including 166, 159, 189. Surprised at how available these skill extractors remain. Even with declining prices here, but of course the declining price of plex could have a part to play here as well. And then next up we've got the skill injectors. These are going up in price quite heavily here, apparently, to 655 million. So sellers, yeah, 685 million. Availability not bad though. Look at that, how many of them. 1.5 pages of skill injectors being brought to the market. The buyers at 675 million. They had to follow suit a little bit. So that actually does mean that skill injectors, the margin between the injectors and the extractors is becoming larger and larger, and I think people are starting to actually make some profit on just spending SP, putting those in skill injectors and then trying to sell them, especially if you can keep those accounts afloat with cheaper and cheaper plexer. And it's going to be interesting. You know, we're seeing skill injectors going for almost 700 million, and then we see plexes, which represents 30 days of training, going for almost 1 billion, so 70% of the price for how much percent of the SP? To me, this is starting to feel out of whack already. I would much rather buy a plex at 1 billion in order to be able to train a character for a whole month than buy 500,000 skill points for a very new character and potentially a lot less for an older character at 700 million. Just doesn't make that much sense to me. So from that perspective, in my opinion, plexes are in a very good place. The one thing, of course, that all of this seems to be indicating to me, considering the volumes that we have in plexes that are coming in here, the continued decrease in price of the skill extractors, and counter to that, the increase in price of the skill injectors, I think a lot of people are starting to see the skill injectors as the new item to store value in, to help protect yourself against inflation later on. I think that's obviously a strong possibility that we're seeing here. But then, in my expectation, at some point there is going to be a correlation between the injector prices and the plex prices, depending on how much SP you can get out of both. And at that point, I think that they could start to move in sync very strongly. Of course, we'll have to keep an eye on that, but it is a very interesting market to check out. At the moment, it's not a good time to be the one that has invested in plex earlier in the last 6 months or so, because of course at the moment we are at a 6-month low on the chart for the plexes themselves. On the other hand, of course, very good news for the affordability of the game by playing it. All right, next up we've got some minerals, 945. Let's take a look at that. Titanium up a little bit, actually a decent amount in the last 2 weeks or so. I think this could be an impact from the war. You can clearly see a pretty big increase in volumes happening as well, together with the increase in price here. Now volumes has dropped off, so I think we will stop increasing the price, but 677 for the sellers, 652 for the buyers, so they actually had to increase their buy orders by a little bit as well. I don't think we'll reach 7 ISK, honestly. Availability here, well, not that a billion units here, but the other sellers are actually not that big. 2 billion units here, 2 billion. Actually, I'm retracting that. This could have enough momentum if supply doesn't start to come in pretty massively. Then we could go up quite substantially, because we still have to give the edge to the buy orders because of the big volumes here. 2 billion, 1.5 billion, 2 billion, another billion. You have to go down a little bit more here. You have 1 billion and 2 billion, but that's it for the absolutely big sell orders. So yeah, titanium could actually still have legs and go up quite substantially. In my expectations, these lower volumes could just be because of lower availability and not because of less ISK flowing into the titanium market. My expectation is that this is an impact from the war, and together, of course, with the war, the Citadel expansion. So there's a lot of production that will need to happen in the upcoming months. Next up here, we've got pyrite also bouncing off of a pretty low point of 10.9 ISK. So here again, what could be interesting, sellers at 1106, buyers at 1090. 1090, which is here. Yeah, okay. We do see an increase in volume that corresponds with the increase in price, but after that, volume has come back to a normal level. So it's interesting. Let's take a look at some volumes for the sellers. 300 million, 200 million. Those are the big ones. For the buyers, 500 million, 184 million, 295. This is a lot less out of sync than titanium. So I would say pyrite set to actually find a price range just above 11 ISK, just around 11 ISK, but not primed for an increase in price as I'm reading it for titanium. Next up here, we've got Mexalon. It did go up for a few months now after reaching a 6-month low of 59 ISK. So we are up to 63. After that, we had to come back down a little bit, but let's see where the sellers are at. 63.21, buyers 59.28. So once again, a little bit of upwards pressure in Mexalon, probably due to the war. We do have a big volume spike here. General trend in the last 2 months as the price increase, of course, has also been of increased volumes here. So it's going to be interesting to see if supply can keep up for Mexalon. Then we could start to flatten out. If it can't, then we will continue to go up in price. The interesting part here, we see 24 million units being brought in 2 sell orders, but that's it in the last, well, 5 days from the looks of it. So that's definitely not a lot, and of course could be a major reason why Mexalon is going up in price like this. On the buyer front, well, we don't have that many new buy orders either. They're not that big in volume, so Mexalon dropping down and now having a little bit of momentum, but I don't see that much upwards potential in Mexalon. Titanium is still my winner so far. Next up here, we got Isogen. Counter to the other ones, continuing to go down in price, breaking 100 ISK pretty easily a few weeks ago, now trying to break 95 ISK. Let's see where the sellers are at. 97.35, the buyers though are at 70 ISK. No one is buying Isogen at the moment. That is really weird to me. The margin here is unhealthily big, 27 ISK. Margin between the sellers and the buyers. Still, people are bringing some of them in. We are obviously at a 6-month low point here, which has gone straight down from 125 ISK to 95 ISK now. And I mean, put up some buy orders at 80 ISK. If those get filled, I think you're doing a really good deal at that point. So this is a crazy situation where there is just no real demand on the buy order side for Isogen, continuing to drop in price. I think at some point this has to turn around. So this is almost investment worthy, especially on some good buy orders, I think. So yeah, that's it for the high-sec mineral market. A little bit of a divided picture here, with titanium doing something quite unexpectedly at a 6-month high, and then on the other end we have Isogen at a 6-month low, and the other ones just in between that, I think having the potential to find a price range, but not showing any signs of either going down substantially like isogen or going up substantially like titanium. For the null-sec ones, let's start with Zydrine here, obviously still going down a little bit, breaking 1150, so that still has some momentum left. Supply almost a full front page, including 7.6 million units being brought to the market just a few hours ago. Yeah, this is going to try to go back down. Again, the real difficulty, of course, is going to be trying to spot a new bottom for Zydrine. And personally, I think that at some point it is going to happen. Because of the war, you'll need some of this to be produced. But I think looking at this chart, especially, I think if you'll go for the 1 year chart, you clearly have the mineral changes that happened pretty much a year ago, increasing the price substantially. But then we had to give ground a little bit. Then we went up to 1600 ISK for Zydrine. After that we went way down, but here that sharp spike up could just be some market manipulation. I think that was just completely counter to what was happening. We're going back down here again, but this could happen over and over again if the combination of the war and combination of the Citadel expansion can increase the demand for minerals substantially. Then we could be in for another spike in Zydrine, and just trying to spot the next bottom could be a pretty good idea. So currently going down, of course. If you want, let's see where the buyers are at. Just above 1000 ISK, so 1072, something like that, which is right here on the chart. Honestly, if you have that ISK lying around and you want to start making up some stocks of these null-sec minerals, then yeah, putting up a buy order close to these ones could actually be a good idea, I think. Let's take a look at Megasite here, obviously in a similar trend, heading towards 1100 ISK. So I would say that that obviously means that I think Zydrine is going to go down a little bit more as well, because Megasite's already there. Here the sellers are at 1123, the buyers are at 1121 though. That margin is gone. So your investment opportunity, I would say the buy orders of Zydrine are there. And Megasite could actually find its bottom price just close to 1100. Keep in mind though, we went close to 1000 previously. What's the supply looking like? Well, despite that, you know, despite Megasite going down in price that much, we have more than a front page of sell orders being brought to the market in the last 24 hours, including 5 million units here. That's quite a lot. 1 million here, 2 million here. That is definitely quite a lot of Megasite still being thrown on the market here for these declining prices. So be careful with this, and if you do want to start building up the stocks, I would gamble on buyers for Zydrine, because the margin is still a little bit bigger, and that one is not as supplied as Megasite is at the moment. Still, historically, Zydrine should be lower than Megasite, so it's a strange mix here at the moment. Next up, we'll take a quick look here at Morphite, finally stopping its descent just above 10,000 ISK. I do think that if Prosper called this a great buy opportunity, Morphite at 9,800 below 10,000 for the buy orders is probably a really good investment. And I think that, yeah, and just, you know, a general situation, of course, a 6-month low close to 10,000 ISK, buy orders below 10,000 ISK is just objectively probably a really good situation to jump in on this one. And of course, if Prosper also saying that, well, this is an investment that he makes from time to time, especially if Morphite goes below 10,000 ISK, then this is obviously a good opportunity to try and pick up some Morphite below that price and wait for the volatility to bring the price back up and find a good sell opportunity. So yeah, Morphite, I think it could be a good idea to invest some ISK in that if you have it. That's it for the minerals. Interesting, pretty divided situation at the moment, and I can't really say that the war has a singular impact on the minerals. Not yet. Maybe it's just too early for that. Take one chips, that could be interesting though. 1930, Let's go over these here. We've got the Armageddon still going down in price. So obviously the Armageddon battleships are not really in the meta in nullsec at the moment. Battleships are just, I think, considered too vulnerable to bombing runs. And as a result, they're not used that much, except for like the Macharial, but that's a faction battleship that costs quite a bit more. That is very specialized, very potent, and extremely fast for a battleship. That is, of course, something to keep in mind. So yeah, the Armageddon continuing to go down in price. No new seller, well, a few new sellers at 214 million, but a few big ones at 209, below 210 million are keeping the price here at this range at the moment, as a few buy orders are being filled as well. So okay, the Armageddon, I think if people keep bringing a few of them on the market, like these orders, then we could be in for stable Armageddon prices after this correction back down to probably a normal price range to 205, 210 million, something between that. The Caracal could be interesting, exactly. Went up in price substantially. Just look at the increase in volume. This is, of course, the impact of the war. What are they selling for at the moment? The peak here seems to have been around 15 million sellers. 15 million at the moment. You're still selling Caracals at a very good price. This is a great opportunity if you can bring them in big enough volumes. Of course, the Caracal is a very good Tech 1 fleet ship, used a lot in nullsec, and it's also something that is not too hard to skill into. A lot of people start their characters as Caldari, and as a result, yeah, the Caracal, I think, is a very newbie-friendly ship, something that a lot of the new player-friendly alliances tend to form up in, just to participate in the nullsec war at the moment. So huge volumes, a very high price for the Caracal, incredible opportunity, of course, for manufacturers. Next up here, we've got the Dominix, a battleship going back down a little bit, honestly just meandering in the 200 to 210 million range here. I would say that it looks a bit more volatile than it is, but this is a decently stable market. One surprise though, big increase in volume just before a decrease in price. That's pretty unusual. The supply here though, yeah, still looks pretty healthy. With another 60 of them coming in the last 24 hours or so. This could be like a singular Dominix purchase for a fleet in nullsec. At some point they will start to come out, I think, but it tends to be seen more as a desperation move if you have to start fielding Tech 1 battleship fleets rather than the faction battleships that are well, a lot more better performing in the current meta with all the bombs flying around. So next up here we've got the Drake, also going up in price, obviously going up in volume as well. This could be nullsec impact, I think. Supply is still pretty healthy. Look at that, almost a full front page of new ones, including 2 decent orders of 25 units. So this could be an impact from the nullsec war, a few Drake fleets here and there, maybe from people that are coming back especially for the war and that are still stuck in the Drake doctrine from a few years ago. Something like that is possible, but yeah, the Drake is also not a bad platform. Something that from the Caracal is just a logical step up in skilling, and just well, not as good as it used to be, but it is possible that some alliances plan to form up some Drake fleets to join the battle, or maybe even the Imperium, because historically I think this is of course very anecdotal from the Rooks and Kings video, where you saw those huge fleets of Drakes from I think it was the CFC back then. So yeah, it could be that this has something to do with the war. If it does, then of course the price is bound to stay decently high volumes as well. If it doesn't, then we could be in for a pretty sharp decline here as supply keeps coming in at a decent pace. So that could be a good indicator by next week. Next up here we've got the Mauler, slightly up in price above 12 million. Big volume spike here as well, but managing to maintain a decent price range. So I don't think that this is that used in the war at the moment. The Mauler doctrine's availability, half a front page, including 86 and 50 of them coming back in here. Not that bad, keeping the price on. We're also not seeing anything close to the Caracal volume increase here in the Mauler market, so I don't think that this will be impacted that much. Next up here we've got the Myrmidon. 57 million is where apparently it wants to trade around, and here this was just, I guess, too big a supply increase that needed to be absorbed by the market. At the moment we're just trading back around the 57 million range. Availability, let's take a look at that. Quite alright. I think this is 2 days ago, then again in the last 24 hours, including another 50 of them or so. Yeah, it's set to trade at around 57 million and probably stay there in the foreseeable future. Oracle could be nullsec related. Alright, slight increase in volume, up to 90 million in price, but nothing too drastic, so I'm guessing that the Oracle is not one of the main doctrines. Yeah, managing to keep the price decently in check. We are at a decently high point, but it's not a big spike like the Caracal. Despite the very low availability, I think that there are some Caracal fleets being flown in the nullsec war at the moment, but just not that many. It's definitely not something that is considered that effective and super mainstream in the war, I don't think. Next up here we've got the Raven. Spike up in the Raven, volume spike up as well. Very likely that someone decided to build a Raven fleet. I think the price was quite affordable, yeah, close to 190 last week. So that could just be an opportunity purchase by a major alliance saying, all right, you know what? We need more ships in backup. What is the cheapest or one of the cheapest battleships at the moment? The Raven. Okay, a lot of people are Caldari, so again, going from the Caracal to the Drake to the Raven is just a normal skill progression that a lot of people do go through. The Raven is also considered a really good PvE ship, so those skill points are never really lost. And so as a result, I think maybe, yeah, someone may have purchased a few Raven fleets because, well, we're talking 200 of them, so basically a good Raven fleet here, and that increased the price, but it's still not completely out of whack either. 200 million, and you can see the producers are coming in with quite a few of them at short order. So unless this volume keeps up, which I don't think it will, this price is set to go back down. Next up here we've got the Stabber. Nothing too drastic to report here either, just trading around 11.5 million, and not even that many new ones are coming in here, just a few sell orders, but nothing too major. So the Stabber, very well supplied, very stable, and apparently not in the meta too much. Here's the Tornado then, went up in price on a big volume increase, but short-lived, already coming back down. Currently selling for 72.5 million, which is not that much. Bars at 66.7 million. So yeah, here we do see the potential of the production in EVE Online, with a major increase in price up to 86 million for a Tornado. The manufacturers have managed to keep up with that, to keep up with demand, and they have brought the price back down to a pretty low point for 6 months actually. 72.5 million right here on the chart. It's actually at a pretty low point. So availability, yeah, they keep coming in the last 24 hours despite the drop in price. So it looks like this should normalize. Next up here we get the Typhoon, up in price just a little bit. Volumes are not though, so this is just a little bit of market action around the 180 million mark. But nothing to report here concerning the war. And then finally here we have the Vixor, which is, well, after a really big spike up to 14 million on a lot major volume increases here, I think we're slowly going to go back towards the averages of, well, around 12 million, just below that probably. The sellers are already at 12.2 million, the buyers 11.1, and availability, well, when they come with Vixors, they come with a lot of them. 29 units, 13, 19, 42, 50. These are decently good sized sell orders, and so the price is going to go back down below 12 million pretty soon, I think. Yeah, that's it for the Tech 1 market. Honestly, I'm guessing that we are seeing a lot of Tech 3 fleets, we are seeing a lot of macharial fleets, faction fleets, and of course Caracal fleets for the new bros seems to be the thing at the moment. So this is the one really clear impact of the war that we're seeing right here. Tech 2 ships, that could be interesting as well. That would be at 29.30. is what I'll take. Let's take a look at some of these. Here is the basilisk, clearly going up in price, and I really do think that this is related to the war. We've not seen any major capital and super capital engagements or anything like that, so it's a lot of subcaps being flown at the moment. And of course the logistics cruiser plays a major part in keeping the fleets alive. On top of that, I also think that with the new sovereignty system, where smaller fleets will probably go after individual objectives, the importance of logistics has only increased, and that is why we're seeing these go for a pretty high price at the moment. Here's the basilisk. So if you manage to purchase those and you were patient enough, you managed to purchase those for, let's say, 190 to 200 million. Currently they're selling for close to 300 million, and I definitely think that for the logistics cruisers this is going to be war related. The Cerberus as well, of course, was at an extremely high price all of a sudden last week. Actually managed to stay there for several days. Now it's coming back down. I'm guessing that supply must be pretty decent. Yeah, all right, 21 here, but the rest, it's not even that much. Selling for 237 million at the moment. Right here on the chart, the increase in volumes here, that is obviously related to the war. The Cerberus is being flown quite a lot in nullsec at the moment. Next up here we've got the Guardian. Data point up to 210 million. What are we talking about? 217 million for the sellers, 168 million for the buyers. That's a huge margin in between them though. But look at the increase in volume here, obviously related to the war. I was afraid of saying 140 million for the Guardian. At some point in the last few weeks in Eve Talk, I must have said that if you can pick him up on the low enough buy orders, it could be good to move in on the Guardian. And now, of course, this would be a great sell opportunity. The chart has yet to catch up, but this will shoot up quite drastically and is related to the war. Next up here we got the Hound, also increasing in price. Stealth bombers. I was really surprised by what I saw on one of the streams. When it comes to bombers, there was a small destroyer fleet that was harassing around a station before the timers, and people tried to bomb those, but they actually got destroyed very quickly. So every time they tried to do a bombing run, the destroyers actually destroyed 3-4 bombers and then still warped off before the bombs detonated. It was quite impressive to see. So I think bombers are still in the meta, especially if they expect people to start moving into battleships fleets. And as a result, they are being flown, but lost quite a lot at the moment as well. And so here we've got the Hound, which I think is a really good bomber, going up again towards 28 million. There's not that many of them, so it's pretty obvious on the increasing volume as well that these are being flown in the war quite a little bit. The Ishtar next, going back down in price after honestly being at 195 million, was pretty high. But on pretty high volumes we are going down in price, so I'm guessing that it took a little bit of time, but people have produced and prepared a lot of Ishtars for this market, and as a result, despite the increasing volumes, we're going down in price just a little bit. Next up here we've got the Manticore, also going up in price. Again, we're empty of these, so if you have some Manticores lying around, that is the great time to sell here at the moment, and this is of course related to the war. So to my big surprise, maybe at this point someone was like saying we're gonna do this, planning it, and so some market speculation happened on this already, causing the increase in spike. But this one is a second one, which well, with everything that's been happening in the war, of course, has actually a logical explanation. So Manticore up in price, and as you can see, almost empty on the market. Nemesis next, also increasing in price here. I did not expect that, of course. I would have preferred to see the Nemesis drop closer to 18 or 19 million, but yeah, with the war, of course. Availability, this is it. I can't scroll here, selling for 24 million. You could have bought them for 20 million just a few weeks ago, so definitely not bad. 20% increase just like that. But it was risky a few weeks ago, and now of course with the war it all makes sense. Next up we've got the Oneros. Yeah, I think I did spot this as a buy opportunity. It was very short, of course, and now we see again the increase in volumes for these logistics cruisers. We're empty of Oneroses, 185 million, when you could have purchased them for 150. Really good trade opportunity that was available just a few weeks ago. But the war, because so much Tech 2 stuff is being flown, especially from the stuff that I'm flying, it's going to be very hard to actually have short-term trades on this. I mean, they're just going to be bought. Everything that's being produced in any major volumes is going to be picked up very quickly. So I do think that this is not a good time to be trying to find buy and sell opportunities in the Tech 2 market, just because of the huge volume increase, the war that's happening, which is going to hover around high prices. This is more the time of Tech 2 producers to shine and line their pockets. Next up here we got a purifier. Again, I probably said that it's maybe too early to buy the purifier, but of course the war increased the volumes up to 30 million, and that's what they're selling for at the moment. It's just pretty crazy. Next up here we've got the scimitar. Well, not as much as I expected for a logistics cruiser, but still at a 6-month high, close to 175 million. Increases in volumes are here. It's just not apparently the most popular logistics ships at the moment, selling for 162, actually going back down already. A bit of a surprise there, but alright. Could it be that it's only a matter of time until the scimitar jumps up in price drastically as well? It is possible, but it remains a pretty big gamble, I think. Next up here we've got the Vengeance. Again, the assault frigates are just not being flown that much, with the tactical destroyers being a thing now. And so this one, despite all of the other ones increasing in volume, big price spikes, being used and flown and lost a lot in nullsec, here is the assault frigate languishing, going back down, lower volumes, less than, probably 25 of them being sold just a few days ago, less than 50 a day for sure. It's just not in the meta at the moment. So that's it for Tech 2. If you can produce, if you can sell, then this is a great time to do so. But because of the war, I don't think we'll spot any buy opportunities anytime soon. Let's move on to the Tech 3 market, 3640. And of course, let's start with the tactical destroyers, or those, still, this is quite to my surprise, honestly. I guess availability has really become high enough to maintain a stable price, just around 50 million for the Confessor. And the Confessor, honestly, not a bad ship, something that is flown in fleets decently often. Maybe more in low sec, small gang stuff, but I think you do see Confessor fleets around in nullsec as well. So buyers at 48 million, sellers at 50 million, and only one sell order in the last 24 hours, but 24 units. And of course, this is at a very low price. So availability is huge in this Confessor market. Price managing to stay at 50 million. Of course, if at some point an alliance or maybe even a coalition decides to come in, they could do a bit of damage here. But at the moment, it's really looking like the tactical destroyer market, at least the Confessor market, manages to maintain high availability and low prices. Next up here we get the Hecate. Similar story. I mean, it's ending at some point, of course, but 50 million, pretty much a 6-month low. And despite that, we still have around 30 or so of them coming in. Buyers, just not that many of them anymore, and availability is just very high. Next up here we've got the Jackdaw, went as low as 46 million, which was a 6-month low, so obviously we're correcting back up just a little bit from that, but I think we'll look quite alright. Yeah, this is unexpected, right? I mean, we just went up from 46 million, a 6-month low, up to 48.5, and we have almost a full front page of new sellers of Jackdaws. So I think that they're just being overproduced at the moment, but if people want to make some fleets of these, then it could be a good idea to buy these at the moment. And then finally we've got this Vapel here, just hovering at 50 million. We see a bit of an increase in volume here all of a sudden, but despite that, look at this, 50 million, and we still have half a front page of new orders, including 23, 15, 10, 24, 29, 40, and 18. That's just crazy. It's way too much. And so this big volume spike here, twice the averages, just hasn't had any impact on the on the price. And yeah, Zweepels I think are considered slightly overpowered, so some Zweepel fleets in the Nullsec war I think could be a thing, could also explain the increase in volume. But despite that, just look at the availability, it's still absolutely mind-bogglingly high. The amount of new sell orders coming out is just so high, it's crazy. So this is, yeah, just I think the tactical destroyer market may be in a situation of slight overproduction, but the general activity in the game is actually keeping the price at around 50 million or so. The cruiser market could be different, so let's start with the Legion here. Well, okay, going up from 170 to 180. We do see a few big volumes being bought here, but nothing too drastic. What surprised me is that surprises me, we're just not seeing a lot of recent orders coming in here. We do have a few of them trying to sell at 186 or something like that, but it's not happening just yet here in the Tech 3 market. Next up here we've got the Loki, also no noticeable increase in volumes, managing to stay just below 165 million. So at a pretty low price for 6 months, availability here, yeah, look at that. 60, 70, probably 80 or 90 Lokis being brought in the last 24 hours despite the low prices. Quite a surprise. Availability pretty damn decent as well. So yeah, just doesn't seem to be the thing at the moment, which surprises me. Here we've got the Proteus, went up a little bit towards 200 million, but it's already coming back down, I'm guessing. Yeah, 190 for the latest sell order, and again almost a full front page of new orders. The Proteus a bit more expensive, slightly more volume as well. This could be an impact from the Nullsec war, but we're not seeing it being bought out completely or anything like that. And then finally here we've got the Tengu, actually increasing in volume here, but dropping in price. That is really weird. 166 million at the moment. A few sell orders in the last 24 hours, but especially 2 days ago, quite a few of them came back in despite a price of 171 million. So I think you'd want to get some Proteus to the market rather than anything else. But the Tech 3 market, to my surprise, a slight impact from the war to be detected, but if it weren't for that, I think almost all of them would be at pretty much 6-month low prices and yeah, really high availability. So the Tech 3 market for a longer term investment, this could be something to look into if you expect that at some point maybe something like confessors will be flown more and things like that. Strange situation after all of the volatility, a war breaks out, but the Tech 3 market actually doesn't seem to be impacted that much by the war. Pretty interesting stuff here. And then finally for the extra materials, 4210, I have a few requests. So of course one request that came in was for the macharial, since well, it's being flown so much in the war, and the goons have actually had to self-destruct a big macharial fleet just so that well, they wouldn't keep feeding the Money Badger forces. So here we go. What can we spot since February 1st, where we also saw a lot of, I think, LOSIC action and the first attempts to disrupt some of the Imperium holdings. Volumes have gone up, of course, extremely high, right? We used to trade less than 100 a day. Now we're trading close to 200 a day. And so, yeah, the volumes are up quite drastically, but the price, not that much. It is at a high point though, 460 million for a macharial for sure. We've had that before, but yeah, for 6 months, this is not that special of a price chart to look at. The volumes though are obviously noticeably higher. The question is just going to be, I think, how long will they be able to keep supplying the market of all the macharials needed for this war? If at some point we see a few major macharial fleets just being wiped out, then that could be the push that the macharial market needs to really go up in price quite drastically. But yeah, at the moment I'm reading this as higher volumes, but supply has managed to keep up with that, and the price is up a little bit, but nothing completely world-shattering either. And then another request that I got was for titanium carbide, which is right here. It's a very good spot here. We have increased volumes just about a week ago or so, and the price has increased quite substantially from 160 ISK to 200 ISK. Now this is being used in the Tech 2 manufacturing, and of course we already saw in the Tech 2 ships that a lot of these are actually being flown and used and lost quite very heavily in the Nordic War at the moment. So this is it is quite normal that something like titanium carbide actually moves up quite drastically. So 199 for the sellers. Some people are bringing their stocks to the market. I think if you look at 18 million, 20 million right here, then that is happening. People are seeing this as a sell opportunity. Will probably start to flatten out here. But yes, I do think that across the board at this point, Tech 2 materials, advanced moon materials and stuff like that is going to be pretty high in price because of all the Tech 2 action that's happening in the Nordic War. So yeah, very good suggestion, very good spot. Of course, you used to be able to buy this for even 120 ISK, and now being able to sell that for 200 is not a bad deal at all, of course. But this is not something that an individual or a small corporation can hope to produce for themselves, because these are moon minerals, of course, and that is something that is hotly fought over even by the really big players in EVE Online. But there you go, guys. That's going to be it for this week's EVE Talk. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.